Today, we're cracking open some of history's most secret files, the actual, honest-to-goodness plans that world powers drew up to invade the United States. I mean, it's a pretty common belief, isn't it? You've got two giant oceans, friendly neighbors, the U.S. mainland feels like a fortress. And for most of American history, that sense of security has been a really core part of the national identity.
But that feeling of safety? Turns out, it's been tested way more often than you might think. From the smoke-filled rooms of the 19th century to the secret bunkers of World War II, military planners in London, Berlin, and Tokyo were all busy drawing up detailed blueprints to attack America on its own turf. Let's dig in.
Okay, so our first close call comes at a time when America was at its absolute weakest, the Civil War. While the nation was literally tearing itself apart, the big powers over in Europe were watching, and they were watching very, very closely, wondering if a broken America was an opportunity.
This was a massive, high-stakes poker game. The Confederacy was betting the farm on King Cotton. They figured that Europe's textile mills would grind to a halt without their cotton, forcing Britain and France to jump in and help them. But for the Europeans, it was a much colder calculation. Was getting cotton really worth a full-blown war with the Union? Especially when that could mean the U.S. might just decide to invade British-owned Canada right next door?
And it almost blew up. The Trent Affair was the flashpoint. A Union captain boards a neutral British mail ship, a huge no-no, and arrests two Confederate diplomats. London was absolutely furious. They sent thousands of troops to Canada and put the Royal Navy on high alert. It took some seriously careful diplomacy from Abraham Lincoln's team to walk everyone back from the brink and stop the Civil War from turning into a massive world war.
All right, let's jump forward in time to the turn of the 20th century. You've got a newly unified and super ambitious German empire, and they are not happy about America's growing power. So, behind closed doors, their top military minds were drafting some incredibly detailed and audacious invasion plans.
You can actually see their strategy evolving right here. At first, it's just a simple naval hit-and-run idea. But then, after they saw the U.S. easily win the Spanish-American War, Germany's plans got way more aggressive. I mean, they even sent a spy to scout landing spots on Cape Cod. This just shows how seriously Germany was starting to see the U.S. as a major global rival that needed to be put in its place.
100,000. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's how many German soldiers their biggest plan called for landing on the American East Coast. Transporting an army that size across the entire Atlantic Ocean would have been a logistical nightmare, but they were seriously thinking about it as a way to deliver a knockout blow.
And this wasn't just some vague idea scribbled on a napkin. No, they had specific beaches picked out. The goal was a classic shock and awe campaign. Land troops on Cape Cod and near New York, march on Boston and the Big Apple, and then start shelling Manhattan to create mass panic and force the U.S. government to surrender.
Now, if those German invasion plans were a secret threat, this next story is about a secret that absolutely exploded onto the world stage. It's the incredible tale of a single-coded message that helped pull the United States into the First World War.
So in 1917, Germany's foreign secretary, a guy named Arthur Zimmermann, sends a telegram to Mexico with a proposal that is just wild. He basically says, hey, if the U.S. declares war on us, you declare war on them. We'll give you a bunch of money, and you can take back your old territories, Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. It was this insane gamble to keep America busy fighting on its own border.
But oh boy, did that gamble fail. British codebreakers intercepted and deciphered the whole thing. And when they showed it to the Americans, well, public opinion, which had been pretty divided, swung hard towards war. The thought of a German-backed invasion coming from Mexico was just too much for anyone to ignore.
So what about Mexico? Well, they were smart about it. Their country was right in the middle of a messy revolution. Their generals took one look at the idea and basically said, there is no way we can win a war against the entire United States military. So they politely but firmly rejected Germany's explosive offer.
Okay, so we've covered threats from across the Atlantic and from the South, but what about that long, quiet northern border? I know it seems completely unthinkable today, but for a little while, one of America's closest allies was quietly drawing up invasion plans of its own.
Now, seriously, Canada. Right after World War I, there were some simmering tensions between the British Empire and the United States. So a Canadian officer was given a pretty strange task: create a plan to invade the U.S., just in case the worst happened. The plan was called Defense Scheme Number 1, and it was actually pretty bold.
The goal wasn't to conquer America. They knew that was impossible. It was all about buying time. The idea was for Canadian flying columns to launch a lightning-fast strike across the border, hit key cities and supply hubs, and then fall back, blowing up bridges and railways on their way out to slow down the huge American counterattack they knew was coming.
And here's the kicker, the absolute twist in the story. The U.S. military had the exact same idea, just in reverse. America's War Plan Red was a detailed blueprint for a full-scale invasion of Canada if a war with Britain ever broke out. It's wild to think that for a time, these two friendly neighbors were secretly planning to invade each other.
So far, everything we've talked about has been a what-if, contingencies, war games on paper, plans that were ultimately put back in a drawer and forgotten. German schemes, British fears, Canadian strategies. But one of these plans wasn't just a plan.
Because in the middle of World War II, the theoretical suddenly became terrifyingly real. For the very first time since the War of 1812, a foreign army successfully invaded and occupied United States soil.
It was called Operation Owl. In June of 1942, partly as a diversion for the huge Battle of Midway, Japanese forces landed on two remote, foggy Alaskan islands, Attu and Kiska. While they were far from the U.S. mainland, it was American territory, and it would take the United States almost an entire year to gather its forces and launch a massive operation to take it back.
This chart, it tells you everything you need to know about how ferocious the fighting for Attu was. The battle ended when the remaining Japanese defenders launched one final desperate banzai charge. Out of almost 2,900 Japanese soldiers on that island, nearly every single one was killed. Only 29 were taken prisoner. 99% were casualties.
And the cost for the Americans was just staggering. Almost 4,000 casualties, killed and wounded, to retake one small, frozen island. It was an absolutely brutal fight, fought in some of the worst weather conditions of the entire war. Soldiers were battling not just a determined enemy, but also constant frostbite and relentless Arctic storms.
The battle for Attu and the whole Aleutian Islands campaign really proved that America wasn't some untouchable fortress. It was a harsh wake-up call, a powerful reminder that the war could, and in fact did, reach its shores.
So from Civil War plots and German blueprints to an actual Japanese occupation, the idea of invading the U.S. is a lot more real than most of us think. It really makes you wonder, right? These are just the plans that we know about, the ones that have been declassified. What other close calls might still be locked away in a government vault somewhere?